For thousands of years, entire cities vanished beneath deserts, temples disappeared into forests, ancient villages were buried beside forgotten rivers, and remarkable civilizations slowly faded from human memory. Some were rediscovered by accident, others after decades of careful excavation. Each discovery has revealed another piece of humanity's forgotten past. In this documentary, from enormous bronze statues hidden beneath the soil of China, to prehistoric villages older than the pyramids, lost Silk Road capitals, sacred mountain sanctuaries, mysterious underground chambers, and forgotten fortresses that once shaped the course of history. Along the way, and discover how every excavation continues to change our understanding of the ancient world. So before we begin, quick thing before we start, I dropped the price on my Ancient Sleep Rituals book to $9.99 for a limited time. 22 real sleep techniques from Egypt, Sumer, the Maya, and the Norse. Links in the description. Now, let's get into it. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Please consider subscribing. Now, our journey begins. Our journey, the Palace of Alalakh. In the fertile Amik plain of southern Turkey, where rivers once nourished fields of grain and orchards stretched toward distant mountains, an ancient mound rises quietly above the landscape. To passing travelers, it appears to be little more than a broad hill, but beneath its layers of earth, more than 4,000 years of history have accumulated. One city built upon another, generation after generation. This is Tel Echana, the site of the ancient city of Alalakh, home to one of the most remarkable royal palaces of the Bronze Age. Alalakh stood at an important crossroads between Anatolia, Mesopotamia, and the Mediterranean coast. Caravans carrying copper, timber, textiles, and luxury goods passed through the region. Its rulers controlled valuable trade routes that linked some of the ancient world's greatest civilizations. Prosperity transformed the city into one of northern Syria's most influential kingdoms during the Middle and Late Bronze Ages. The city's greatest monument was its royal palace. Although earlier buildings occupied the site, the most famous palace dates to the 15th century BC during the reign of King Idrimi, constructed from mud brick upon strong stone foundations. The palace served not only as the king's residence, but also as the political, administrative, and ceremonial heart of the kingdom. Nearly every important decision affecting Alalakh would have begun within its walls. Visitors approaching the palace entered through carefully controlled gateways. Beyond them lay broad courtyards surrounded by official buildings. Reception halls welcomed foreign ambassadors. Private apartments housed the royal family. Storerooms held food, weapons, and tribute collected from surrounding territories. Offices buzzed with scribes recording trade agreements, taxes, and diplomatic correspondence on clay tablets. The palace functioned as the engine of an entire kingdom. One of Alalakh's greatest archaeological discoveries was made not in its architecture, but in its archives. Excavations uncovered hundreds of clay tablets written in cuneiform. These remarkable documents recorded legal contracts, royal decrees, trade transactions, marriage agreements, and diplomatic negotiations. Together, they provide an unusually detailed picture of everyday administration nearly 35 centuries ago. Few Bronze Age cities have preserved such a rich written record. Among the most fascinating discoveries was the statue of King Idrimi. Unlike many royal sculptures, its inscription tells a deeply personal story. According to the text, Idrimi fled his homeland during political upheaval. He spent years living in exile among different peoples, before eventually gathering allies, returning home, and reclaiming his throne. Whether every detail reflects historical reality or royal propaganda remains uncertain. But the inscription offers one of the earliest autobiographical accounts ever written by a ruler. Excavations also revealed impressive examples of palace decoration. Walls were coated with fine plaster. Painted surfaces once brightened ceremonial rooms. Stone thresholds marked important entrances. Fragments of carved ivory, Imported luxury goods, jewelry, and finely crafted pottery demonstrated the wealth enjoyed by the royal court. Although much has disappeared, the surviving remains reveal a palace designed to impress visitors from across the ancient Near East. Alalakh flourished through international diplomacy as much as military strength. Its kings maintained relationships with powerful neighbors, including the kingdoms of Mitanni, the Hittite Empire, and Egypt. Letters exchanged between rulers reveal negotiations over alliances, royal marriages, trade, and regional disputes. The palace therefore served as more than a local government. It was an active participant in the complex political world of the Late Bronze Age. Like many cities of its era, Alalakh experienced repeated destruction, earthquakes, wars, and shifting political fortunes reshaped the settlement over centuries. Each time, new rulers rebuilt upon the ruins of earlier generations. The palace itself underwent several phases of construction before eventually falling into decline as regional powers changed and new kingdoms emerged. Modern excavations began in the 1930s under British archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley. Over many seasons, archaeologists uncovered palace walls, courtyards, temples, private houses, and the invaluable cuneiform archives. More recent excavations have continued to deepen our understanding of the city's development, showing that Tel Etchana preserves one of the longest and most complete archaeological sequences in the ancient Near East. Today, the great halls of Alalakh no longer echo with the voices of kings, diplomats, or scribes. Only foundations remain where royal audiences once took place. The clay tablets have been carefully preserved in museums. The palace itself has returned to silence. Yet beneath the quiet earth of Tel Etchana, the story of Alalakh continues to unfold, revealing how a Bronze Age kingdom governed its people, built international alliances, and left behind one of the richest archaeological records of the ancient world, the rock sanctuary of Yazılıkaya Midas. Across the highlands of central Türkiye, where winds sweep over broad plateaus and volcanic hills, a city unlike any other begins to emerge from the rock itself. Instead of towering walls, there are cliffs carved into monuments. Instead of marble temples, there are shrines sculpted directly into the living stone. The landscape feels ancient, almost timeless, as though nature and human craftsmanship had become impossible to separate. This is Midas City, and at its heart stands one of the greatest masterpieces of the Phrygian civilization, the rock sanctuary of Yazılıkaya. The sanctuary lies within the ancient region of Phrygia, a kingdom that flourished across central Anatolia during the 8th century BC. The Phrygians became known for their remarkable stone architecture, fine metalwork, and powerful rulers, among them the legendary king Midas. Although the famous stories surrounding Midas belong largely to mythology, his kingdom was very real. And Yazılıkaya remains one of its most extraordinary surviving monuments. The sanctuary was carved into a massive wall of volcanic tuff, a soft stone that could be shaped with remarkable precision. Rather than constructing a separate temple, Phrygian craftsmen transformed the cliff itself into a sacred facade, standing nearly 17 meters high. The monument dominates the surrounding valley, its enormous geometric patterns catching the sunlight from great distances. Even after almost 3,000 years, the precision of its carvings remains astonishing. The front of the monument resembles the entrance to an immense palace. Rectangular panels, diamond-shaped designs, and carefully balanced patterns cover nearly every surface. Yet despite its appearance, no doorway leads inside. At the center lies only a shallow niche, where archaeologists believe a sacred image or statue once stood. The elaborate facade was not meant to conceal a chamber, but to create a monumental setting for religious ceremonies performed in the open air. An inscription carved near the monument contains the word Midas. For centuries, this single name inspired travelers to believe they had discovered the tomb of the legendary king himself. Modern archaeology tells a different story. The inscription most likely refers to a dedication connected with King Midas, rather than identifying his burial place. No evidence suggests that the famous ruler was ever interred within the monument. Even so, the association has remained so strong that the structure is still widely known as the Midas Monument. The sanctuary probably honored Matar, the great Phrygian mother goddess, later known to the Greeks and Romans as Cybele. She represented mountains, nature, fertility, and the protection of communities. Unlike many ancient religions that emphasized enclosed temples, the worship of Cybele often took place among natural rock formations. The cliffs themselves were considered sacred, making Yazılıkaya a perfect setting for ceremonies dedicated to the goddess. Across Midas City, the sanctuary is only one part of a much larger sacred landscape. Archaeologists have identified additional rock-cut facades, altars, monumental tombs, water cisterns, and stairways carved directly into the surrounding hills. Together, they formed an impressive ceremonial center where religion, royal authority, and daily life existed side by side. The entire landscape became a canvas shaped by generations of Phrygian builders. The geometric decoration covering the monument remains one of its greatest mysteries, unlike the realistic sculptures found in Egypt or Greece. The Phrygians favored repeating patterns and symmetrical designs. Some scholars believe these carvings imitate woven textiles, reflecting the kingdom's famous craftsmanship. Others suggest they carried symbolic or religious meaning now lost to history, without written explanations. The true purpose of these intricate designs remains uncertain. The Phrygian kingdom eventually declined following invasions, political change, and the rise of neighboring powers. Yet the sanctuary survived. Later civilizations respected the ancient monument, even as its original religious significance gradually faded. Centuries passed, empires rose and disappeared. Still, the immense stone facade remained standing above the Anatolian plain, watching history unfold beneath it. Modern archaeological research has revealed how carefully the sanctuary was planned. Surveying techniques, tool marks, and unfinished carvings allow researchers to reconstruct the methods used by ancient craftsmen. Despite relying only on simple iron tools, they achieved remarkable precision across an enormous vertical surface. Their work demonstrates both exceptional engineering skill and extraordinary artistic vision. Today, visitors approaching the rock sanctuary of Yazılıkaya experience much the same view that ancient pilgrims once encountered. The towering facade still rises from the cliff. The geometric carvings continue to cast shifting shadows beneath the changing light. The silent niche still faces the open landscape where ceremonies once took place. Though the voices of Phrygian priests have long faded into history, their greatest monument endures, a masterpiece carved into the mountain itself, preserving the memory of a civilization whose mysteries remain etched forever into the stone. Tranna, the giant stone terraces of Sacsayhuamán. High above the ancient city of Cusco, where the Andes stretch endlessly toward the horizon, immense stone walls rise from the mountainside. From a distance, they resemble the ridges of a giant serpent winding across the hill. As visitors draw closer, the true scale becomes almost impossible to comprehend. Some of the stones stand taller than a person, others weigh well over 100 tons, yet each fits so perfectly against its neighbors that even the thinnest blade struggles to slip between them. This is Sacsayhuamán, one of the greatest engineering achievements of the Inca world. Perched on a hill overlooking Cusco, Sacsayhuamán occupied one of the most important positions in the Inca Empire. Cusco itself was regarded as the sacred capital, the symbolic center of the empire that stretched across much of western South America. From this commanding height, the complex overlooked the city, protecting it while also serving as a place of ceremony and royal celebration. It was both a fortress and far more than a fortress. Construction began during the reign of Pachacuti in the 15th century AD, the ruler who transformed the Inca kingdom into a vast empire. His successors, including Topa Inca Yupanqui, continued expanding the monument over many decades. According to early Spanish chroniclers, thousands of workers from across the empire participated in its construction, each community contributing labor as part of the Inca system of public service. The site's most famous feature is its enormous zigzagging defensive walls. Built in 3 massive terraces, they extend for hundreds of meters across the hillside. Each terrace follows a repeating angular pattern, creating an appearance unlike any other ancient fortification. Some researchers believe the zigzag design represented the teeth of a sacred puma, an animal closely associated with strength and royal authority in Inca belief, whether symbolic or practical. The design created multiple defensive positions that would have been extremely difficult for attackers to overcome. What continues to astonish archaeologists is the precision of the stonework. Many blocks weigh between 50 and 100 tons, while the largest are estimated to exceed 120 tons. Despite their enormous size, the stones were shaped individually to interlock like pieces of a giant puzzle. No mortar was used. Each surface was carefully carved until it matched the surrounding stones with extraordinary accuracy. The walls have survived countless earthquakes that destroyed many later buildings in Cusco. Exactly how the Inca achieved such precision remains one of archaeology's enduring questions. Unlike civilizations that relied heavily on iron, the Inca worked primarily with harder stone tools, wooden implements, ropes, and remarkable human organization. Large workforces transported the stones across uneven terrain, gradually shaping each block through repeated testing and careful adjustment. Rather than cutting identical stones, every block became unique. Excavations have revealed that Sacsayhuamán extended far beyond the famous terraces. The complex once included ceremonial plazas, storehouses, watchtowers, water channels, and temples. Spanish accounts describe 3 prominent towers that stood atop the hill, including one known as Muyuk Marca, believed to have served administrative, military, and ceremonial functions. Most of these structures were dismantled during the colonial period, their finely cut stones reused in the construction of churches and buildings throughout Cusco. Although often described as a fortress, many archaeologists believe Sacsayhuamán served multiple purposes simultaneously. Its elevated position certainly offered military advantages. Yet its immense plazas could accommodate thousands of people during festivals and religious ceremonies. One of the empire's most important celebrations, Inti Raymi, the Festival of the Sun, was closely associated with this sacred hill. Here, the emperor, priests, and citizens gathered to honor Inti, the Inca sun god who stood at the center of imperial religion. When Spanish forces entered Cusco in 1533, Sacsayhuamán became the site of one of the fiercest battles of the conquest. In 1536, the Inca ruler Manco Inca launched a massive uprising against the Spanish occupation. Thousands of Inca warriors defended the terraces, using the enormous walls as a formidable stronghold. Although the resistance ultimately failed, the battle demonstrated just how strategically important the complex remained. Centuries of stone removal changed much of the monument. The finest dressed blocks from its towers and upper buildings were carried away to build colonial Cusco. Yet the great terraces proved too massive to dismantle completely. Their colossal stones remained exactly where Inca builders had placed them centuries earlier. Today, they continue to dominate the hillside, defying earthquakes, time, and the ambitions of those who once sought to erase them. Standing before the walls of Sacsayhuamán, it becomes difficult to think only about measurements or engineering. The stones seem almost alive, each one shaped with extraordinary patience. each one fitted into a design larger than itself. The empire that raised these terraces disappeared long ago, but its greatest builders left behind something remarkably enduring, a monument where architecture, landscape, and human determination merged into one of the most extraordinary stone creations ever built in the ancient world, the forgotten citadel of Ulug Depe. Rising gently above the flat plains of southern Turkmenistan, there is a hill that, at first glance, seems entirely natural. Its slopes are quiet, its outlines softened by thousands of years of wind and dust. But beneath this unassuming mound, layer upon layer of forgotten history has remained hidden for millennia. This is Ulug Depe, one of Central Asia's oldest archaeological sites, a place where entire civilizations rose, flourished, and disappeared long before the great empires of Persia or Alexander the Great reached these lands. Located near the foothills of the Kopet Dagh Mountains, Ulug Depe occupied a strategic position between the fertile plains and the ancient trade routes of Central Asia. People first settled here during the Chalcolithic period, around the 5th millennium BC. Over thousands of years, each generation built new homes upon the ruins of the old. As centuries passed, the settlement gradually grew into a towering mound or tell, preserving an almost continuous record of human occupation stretching across several thousand years. Modern excavations have shown that Ulug Depe was far more than a simple farming village. During the Bronze Age, it developed into a fortified settlement with impressive defensive walls, public buildings, workshops, and carefully planned streets. At its highest point stood a raised citadel, overlooking the surrounding countryside and serving as the political and administrative heart of the community. From here, its leaders could watch over both the settlement and the fertile lands that sustained it. French and Turkmen archaeologists began extensive excavations in the early 21st century, revealing an extraordinary sequence of civilizations preserved beneath the mound. Instead of uncovering only a single city, researchers found many different settlements, each representing a new chapter in the long history of Central Asia. Every layer told the story of changing technologies, new rulers, and evolving traditions that unfolded over thousands of years. Among the most remarkable discoveries were large mud brick buildings, storage rooms, grain silos, and carefully constructed defensive structures. The architecture suggests a highly organized society capable of coordinating large building projects and managing agricultural resources on a significant scale. Rather than isolated families, Ulug Depe appears to have been home to a well-established community supported by administration, planning, and skilled craftsmanship. Excavations have also uncovered thousands of everyday objects, pottery decorated with elegant geometric designs, stone tools, bronze implements, grinding stones, animal bones, and beautifully crafted ceramic vessels. Together, these discoveries reveal not only how people built their cities, but also how they prepared food, stored grain, raised livestock, and carried out daily life across countless generations. One of the site's greatest contributions to archaeology is its evidence for cultural change. As researchers moved downward through the archaeological layers, they could trace the gradual transition from early farming communities to increasingly complex urban societies. New styles of pottery appeared, metallurgy became more sophisticated, buildings grew larger, trade expanded. Rather than occurring suddenly, civilization here developed slowly, generation after generation, leaving a remarkably complete record beneath the mound. Ulug Depe also occupied an important position between several ancient cultural worlds. Goods and ideas traveled through this region long before the famous Silk Road emerged. Archaeological evidence suggests connections with neighboring settlements across present-day Iran, Afghanistan, and other parts of Central Asia. These exchanges helped shape the development of technology, agriculture, and artistic traditions throughout the region. Eventually, political changes, shifting trade networks, and environmental pressures altered the importance of the settlement. The great citadel was gradually abandoned, its buildings collapsed, wind carried fresh layers of earth across the ruins. century after century. The once busy streets disappeared beneath the growing mound until even the memory of the city faded from the landscape. Today, standing atop Ulug Depe, it is difficult to imagine the thousands of lives once lived beneath your feet. Children played within these walls. Farmers carried grain into its storehouses. Craftsmen shaped bronze and clay. Leaders watched the surrounding plains from the citadel above. Almost all of it vanished, not through catastrophe, but through the quiet passage of time. Yet beneath this silent hill, the forgotten city endured, patiently preserving one of the longest continuous records of human civilization in Central Asia, waiting for archaeology to uncover its story once again. The mountain fortress of Yoros, at the northern edge of the Bosphorus, where the narrow strait finally opens into the Black Sea. Ancient stone walls stand quietly above the water. From this hilltop, the view stretches for miles. Ships pass below, just as they have for thousands of years. Few places could control this vital waterway more effectively than this. This is Yoros Castle, a fortress whose strategic importance outlasted kingdoms, empires, and entire civilizations. Located on the Asian side of modern Istanbul, Yoros occupies one of the most commanding natural positions along the Bosphorus. Long before the castle itself was constructed, people understood the value of this rocky hill. Whoever controlled this point could watch nearly every vessel entering or leaving the Black Sea, making it one of the most strategically important locations in the eastern Mediterranean. The visible fortress dates primarily to the Byzantine period, with much of its surviving structure built between the 12th and 14th centuries. Its massive stone walls, rectangular towers, and defensive gateways were designed to guard the empire's northern approach to Constantinople. Although often associated with the Byzantines, archaeological evidence suggests the hill had been occupied much earlier, possibly since classical antiquity, when nearby settlements monitored maritime trade through the Bosphorus. Excavations around Yoros have uncovered traces of multiple periods of occupation. Beneath the medieval fortifications, researchers have identified earlier foundations, fragments of ancient ceramics, coins, and architectural remains pointing to centuries of continuous activity. Rather than representing a single fortress, Yoros appears to be the latest chapter in a much older landscape of settlement and defense. Generation after generation rebuilt the site, each adapting it to new military needs while preserving its strategic location. The fortress itself follows the natural contours of the hill. Thick curtain walls surround the highest ground, creating a strong defensive enclosure overlooking both sea and land. Large towers once allowed defenders to observe approaching ships from great distances. Narrow entrances limited access, while the steep slopes below provided additional natural protection against attack, even today. Walking through the ruins makes it easy to understand why armies found this position so difficult to challenge. One of the most intriguing discoveries at Yoros has been the variety of artifacts recovered during archaeological investigations. Excavators have uncovered Byzantine pottery, metal objects, coins, storage vessels, and fragments of everyday household items. These finds remind us that the fortress was not occupied only during times of war. Soldiers lived here, families prepared meals, craftsmen repaired equipment, merchants passed through its gates. Behind the military walls, an active community supported those responsible for guarding one of the empire's most valuable frontiers. Historical records suggest that massive chains may once have stretched across sections of the Bosphorus in coordination with nearby defensive positions. Whether or not Yoros directly controlled such barriers remains debated, but its commanding view certainly allowed defenders to monitor naval movement and communicate with other fortifications along the strait. Its greatest strength lay not only in its walls, but in its remarkable position overlooking one of the world's most important maritime passages. Following the Byzantine period, the fortress passed through several hands. Genoese merchants strengthened portions of the defenses during their growing commercial influence in the Black Sea. Later, the expanding Ottoman Empire captured the region, continuing to recognize the military value of the site. Instead of abandoning the fortress, Successive rulers adapted it to meet changing political and strategic needs. Its long history reflects the constant struggle to control the waterways linking Europe and Asia over the centuries. As artillery transformed warfare and new coastal defenses emerged, Yoros gradually lost its military significance. The garrison disappeared. Buildings collapsed. Vegetation spread across the stone walls. The fortress slowly became part of the surrounding landscape, its centuries of history hidden beneath weathered masonry and layers of earth. Only archaeological excavation would begin revealing the many civilizations that had occupied the hill before. Today, visitors standing among the ruins experience more than the remains of a medieval castle. Every stone reflects centuries of adaptation, conflict, trade, and survival. Below, the Bosphorus continues carrying ships between two continents, just as it did when Byzantine soldiers watched these waters from the towers above. The empires that once fought for this commanding hill have all passed into history. But Yoros remains, a silent guardian overlooking one of the world's greatest crossroads, its walls preserving the story of a fortress that protected the gateway between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean for centuries. The forgotten sanctuary of Tas-Silġ. On a quiet hill overlooking the sparkling waters of southeastern Malta, the remains of weathered stone walls seem almost ordinary. There are no towering temples, no massive pyramids, no monumental statues rising above the landscape. Yet beneath these modest ruins lies one of the longest continuously used sacred places in the Mediterranean. This is Tas-Silġ, a sanctuary where people came to worship for more than 4,000 years. Long after entire civilizations had disappeared. Situated near Sacsayhuamán Bay, Tas-Silġ occupies a naturally elevated position with sweeping views across the sea. Its location made it visible to sailors approaching Malta from distant shores. And perhaps for that reason, it became a place of pilgrimage remarkably early in the island's history. The site's story begins during the Bronze Age, when the first religious structures were established here. But unlike many ancient sanctuaries, Tas-Silġ was never truly abandoned. Instead, each new civilization transformed the sacred space while preserving its spiritual importance. Archaeological excavations began in the 20th century, revealing layer after layer of construction spanning thousands of years. Rather than uncovering a single temple, researchers discovered an extraordinary sequence of religious buildings built directly upon one another. Each generation reshaped the sanctuary, leaving traces of changing beliefs while respecting the significance of the location itself. Few archaeological sites demonstrate such remarkable continuity of worship. During the Phoenician period, beginning around the 8th century BC, the sanctuary became dedicated to the goddess Astarte. Merchants and sailors crossing the Mediterranean likely stopped here to offer prayers before continuing their journeys. Excavations have uncovered Phoenician pottery, stone altars, votive objects, and inscriptions that reveal the site's growing importance within the expanding maritime world of the Eastern Mediterranean. The sanctuary became part of an international network connecting distant ports through trade, religion, and shared traditions. When the Romans arrived, the sacred complex entered another chapter. Instead of destroying the sanctuary, they incorporated it into their own religious system. The temple became associated with the goddess Juno, whom Roman writers described as one of Malta's most important deities. Classical authors even mentioned the sanctuary, suggesting it was already famous among travelers crossing the Mediterranean Sea. Archaeological discoveries confirm extensive Roman rebuilding, including new walls, courtyards, and architectural improvements that expanded the existing complex. Excavators have recovered an impressive collection of artifacts from the sanctuary: ceramic vessels, oil lamps, coins, fragments of marble, decorative architectural elements, animal bones from ritual offerings, and countless small objects left behind by worshippers over many centuries. Together, These discoveries reveal that Tas-Silġ was not simply a monumental building. It was an active religious center where ordinary people gathered to celebrate ceremonies, seek protection, and leave gifts to the gods. Perhaps the site's most remarkable feature is the way every civilization adapted what came before. Instead of clearing the hill and beginning again, builders repeatedly incorporated earlier structures into new temples. Walls were repaired, courtyards enlarged, entrances modified. But the sacred heart of the sanctuary remained in almost the same place. The landscape itself became part of the religious tradition, a place whose importance survived changing languages, governments, and beliefs. The transformation continued during the Byzantine period when Christianity spread across Malta. Portions of the sanctuary were converted into a Christian basilica. Earlier pagan structures were reused, their stones becoming part of an entirely different place of worship. Once again, the purpose of the sanctuary changed. Yet people continued gathering on the same hill that had attracted worshippers for thousands of years. Few places illustrate the gradual evolution of Mediterranean religion so clearly. Eventually, the sanctuary was abandoned. Its buildings slowly collapsed beneath wind, rain, and centuries of neglect. Soil accumulated over the ancient walls. Vegetation covered the stone foundations. The sacred hill grew quiet, its remarkable history hidden beneath the landscape until archaeologists carefully began uncovering it once more. Today, walking through Tas-Silġ is unlike visiting a single ancient monument. Instead, it feels like moving through thousands of years of human belief. Every layer beneath your feet belongs to a different civilization, yet all chose the very same place to build their sanctuary. Empires came and went, gods changed, languages disappeared, but the hill remained sacred. And perhaps that is Tas-Silġ's greatest archaeological discovery, not the stones themselves, but the extraordinary continuity of human devotion that endured there for more than 4 millennia. The stone fortress of Vranduk, high above the winding Bosnia River. A medieval fortress rises from a rocky ridge, its thick stone walls blending almost perfectly with the cliffs beneath them. From this commanding position, the valley stretches in every direction. Anyone approaching would have been seen long before reaching the gates. This is Vranduk Fortress, one of Bosnia's best-preserved medieval strongholds, a place where archaeology has revealed centuries of political power, military strategy, and everyday life hidden within its stone walls. Perched on a narrow hill in central Bosnia, Vranduk controlled one of the most important routes through the region. Travelers, merchants, messengers, and armies moving along the Bosna Valley all passed beneath its watchful towers. The fortress occupied a naturally defensive position where steep slopes protected 3 sides of the hill. Builders needed only to strengthen the remaining approaches with thick walls and fortified gates. Nature itself became part of the castle's defenses. Although the surrounding area had been occupied much earlier, the fortress reached its greatest importance during the Middle Ages, particularly between the 14th and 15th centuries. At that time, Vranduk became one of the principal royal fortresses of the medieval Kingdom of Bosnia. Kings held court here. Diplomatic meetings were conducted within its walls. Military campaigns were planned from its towers overlooking the valley below. The fortress stood at the heart of a growing kingdom navigating the complex politics of southeastern Europe. Modern archaeological excavations have gradually uncovered the fortress's hidden history. Beneath collapsed stonework, researchers discovered foundations of residential buildings, storage rooms, defensive towers, and sections of walls rebuilt many times throughout the centuries. Rather than representing a single construction project, Vranduk evolved continuously. Each generation strengthened its defenses, expanded its buildings, or repaired damage caused by conflict and time. The fortress slowly became the layered monument visible today. Among the discoveries are countless artifacts left behind by those who once lived within the castle. Fragments of medieval pottery, iron tools, arrowheads, horse equipment, coins, glass vessels. and household objects have all emerged from archaeological excavations. These finds reveal a fortress that functioned as much more than a military outpost. Families lived here. Blacksmiths repaired weapons. Servants prepared food. Officials managed the affairs of the kingdom from behind the protective walls. The architecture of Vranduk reflects centuries of adaptation. Massive defensive walls follow the contours of the rocky hill. Square towers guard the entrances. Narrow passageways slow approaching attackers. Within the enclosed courtyard, stone buildings once housed soldiers, administrators, and members of the royal household. Every part of the fortress was carefully arranged to balance defense with the practical needs of daily life. Historical records show that Vranduk witnessed many periods of conflict. Control of the fortress changed as rival powers competed for influence across the Balkans, following the Ottoman conquest of Bosnia in the 15th century. The fortress remained strategically valuable. Instead of abandoning it, the Ottomans repaired sections of the walls and continued using the stronghold for military purposes. Its commanding position remained just as important under new rulers as it had been for the Bosnian kings before them. As warfare changed over the following centuries, stone fortresses gradually lost their military advantage. Power shifted toward modern artillery and new defensive systems. The garrison eventually disappeared. Buildings fell into ruin. Roofs collapsed. Plants rooted themselves between the ancient stones. Slowly, the once busy fortress became a silent monument overlooking the valley it had guarded for generations. Archaeological research has allowed historians to reconstruct much of this forgotten story. Each recovered artifact adds another detail to life inside the fortress. Each rebuilt wall reveals changing construction techniques. Together, they show how Vranduk adapted through centuries of political change without ever losing its strategic importance. Rather than preserving a single moment in history, the fortress captures an entire sequence of medieval Bosnia's development. Today, standing on the ancient walls, visitors can watch the Bosna River winding quietly through the valley below. The same view once greeted medieval guards scanning the horizon for approaching riders. Kings, soldiers, merchants, and travelers have all disappeared into history. But the fortress remains, its weathered stones continuing to overlook the landscape, preserving the story of one of Bosnia's greatest medieval strongholds, and reminding us that some of history's strongest defenses were built not only from stone, but from the remarkable landscapes that surrounded them. Riverside village, older than the pyramids. Long before the first stones of the Egyptian pyramids were placed, long before Stonehenge began to rise across the plains of Britain, a remarkable community had already taken shape beside the banks of the Danube River. Its people built permanent homes, created extraordinary stone sculptures, and established one of Europe's earliest known settled communities. This is Lepenski Vir, a riverside village whose archaeological discoveries have transformed our understanding of prehistoric Europe. Nestled within the dramatic cliffs of the Iron Gates Gorge in present-day Serbia, Lepenski Vir occupies one of the most spectacular natural settings in southeastern Europe. The Danube narrows here as it cuts through towering limestone mountains. For thousands of years, the powerful river provided fish, fresh water, transportation, and a stable source of life for the people who settled along its shores. Unlike many prehistoric camps that lasted only a short time, this community remained here for centuries. The site was discovered during archaeological investigations in the 1960s, just before the construction of a major hydroelectric dam threatened to flood the entire area. Recognizing its extraordinary importance, archaeologists launched an urgent excavation, working against time. They carefully uncovered one of the best-preserved Mesolithic settlements ever found in Europe. Much of the site was eventually relocated to higher ground, allowing its remarkable discoveries to survive. Excavations revealed something astonishing. The settlement was not a random collection of huts. Instead, the houses followed a carefully planned layout overlooking the river. Each home featured a distinctive trapezoidal floor plan, built with stone foundations and wooden walls. Many contained central stone hearths, suggesting permanent residences rather than temporary shelters. This level of planning was unexpected for a community more than 8,000 years old. Perhaps the site's most famous discoveries are its mysterious sandstone sculptures, carved from large river boulders. Many display unusual human-like faces combined with features resembling fish. Wide eyes, broad mouths, and abstract geometric forms give them an appearance unlike almost any other prehistoric artwork in Europe. Archaeologists continue to debate their meaning. Some believe they represented river spirits. Others suggest they honored ancestors, while another theory connects them to the community's dependence on the Danube and its abundant fish. No single explanation has been universally accepted. The river itself shaped nearly every aspect of life at Lepenski Vir. Thousands of fish bones recovered during excavation reveal that fishing formed the foundation of the settlement's economy. The enormous Danube sturgeon, capable of growing several meters in length, provided an abundant source of food. Stone tools, bone hooks, harpoons, and carefully crafted fishing equipment demonstrate an impressive understanding of the river and its seasonal rhythms. For these people, the Danube was not merely a source of water, it was the center of their world. Archaeologists also uncovered numerous human burials beneath the floors of houses. Rather than creating distant cemeteries, the inhabitants often buried family members within their homes. This suggests a deep connection between the living and the dead, where generations remain together even after death. These discoveries provide valuable insight into social organization, family relationships, and spiritual beliefs during Europe's Mesolithic period. One of Lepenski Vir's greatest archaeological contributions is its record of cultural transition. During its long occupation, the settlement witnessed the gradual arrival of agriculture from the Near East. For thousands of years, its inhabitants had lived primarily by fishing and hunting. Eventually, domesticated animals, cultivated plants, and new technologies began appearing alongside older traditions. Rather than replacing one way of life overnight, the archaeological layers reveal a slow blending of two very different worlds. As centuries passed, the village was eventually abandoned. Floods altered the riverbank. Communities moved elsewhere. Its wooden buildings decayed. The stone sculptures became buried beneath layers of soil and sediment for nearly 8,000 years. The remarkable settlement disappeared from human memory. Only modern archaeology brought it back into the light. Today, Lepenski Vir stands as one of Europe's most extraordinary prehistoric discoveries. Its carefully planned houses, its mysterious stone sculptures, and its intimate relationship with the Danube challenge long-held assumptions about the earliest settled societies here. Beside a great river flowing through towering cliffs, people created a permanent community thousands of years before many of history's most famous monuments were built. The pyramids would not appear for millennia. Empires had yet to exist, but life was already flourishing along these ancient riverbanks, leaving behind a story patiently preserved beneath the soil until archaeology uncovered it once again. The desert capital that vanished with the Silk Road. Deep within the arid basin of western China, where endless desert meets fertile oasis, the crumbling walls of an ancient city still rise from the sand. Its streets are silent, its temples stand roofless beneath an endless sky. Only the desert wind now moves through gateways once crowded with merchants from every corner of Asia. This is Gaochang, a forgotten capital that flourished for centuries along the Silk Road, before slowly disappearing as the great trade routes themselves began to fade. Located near modern Turpan in China's Xinjiang region, Gaochang occupied one of the most important oasis settlements in Central Asia. Here, natural springs fed fertile farmland surrounded by one of the harshest deserts on Earth. For travelers crossing the vast Taklamakan Desert, the city offered food, water, shelter, and safety after weeks of dangerous travel. Without oasis cities like Gaochang, long-distance trade across Central Asia would have been nearly impossible. Archaeological evidence suggests that the settlement was established more than 2,000 years ago, eventually growing into an influential kingdom positioned at the crossroads of East and West. Chinese officials, Sogdian merchants, Persian traders, Indian monks, and Turkic nomads all passed through its gates. Few cities along the Silk Road reflected such extraordinary cultural diversity. Languages, religions, and traditions mixed here every day. Modern excavations have revealed the impressive scale of the ancient city. Massive earthen walls still surround the ruins, stretching for several kilometers across the desert. Inside, archaeologists have uncovered residential neighborhoods, government buildings, storehouses, religious complexes, and carefully planned streets. The city's layout demonstrates sophisticated urban planning designed to support thousands of residents as well as the constant flow of merchants arriving from distant lands. One of Gaochang's greatest archaeological treasures lies in its religious history. Beginning in the 4th century, the city became a major center of Buddhism. Monasteries flourished. Temples were richly decorated with colorful murals. Monks copied sacred manuscripts that traveled across Asia alongside caravans. Excavations have uncovered Buddhist sculptures, fragments of painted walls, religious inscriptions, and beautifully preserved manuscripts that reveal the city's importance as a center of learning and spiritual exchange. The surrounding desert played an unexpected role in preserving Gaochang. The region's exceptionally dry climate protected many fragile materials that would normally decay. Archaeologists recovered wooden objects, textiles, paper documents, and even food remains that survived for centuries beneath the sand. These discoveries provide remarkable insight into daily life, trade, administration, and the extraordinary diversity of people who once called the city home. Excavations have also revealed evidence of international commerce on an impressive scale. Chinese ceramics, Central Asian coins, glass imported from Western regions, silk, metal tools, and luxury goods have all been recovered from the site. These artifacts demonstrate that Gaochang was far more than a regional settlement. It served as one of the Silk Road's great commercial crossroads, where goods from Europe, India, Persia, and China changed hands before continuing their long journeys across continents. Yet prosperity depended upon the trade routes themselves. Political changes, shifting empires, and the gradual rise of maritime commerce slowly reduced the importance of overland caravans. As fewer merchants crossed the desert, Gaochang's economy weakened, its population declined, buildings were abandoned. The once vibrant capital slowly gave way to silence. Unlike cities destroyed by sudden catastrophe, Gaochang faded gradually, its decline unfolding over generations. Eventually, the desert reclaimed the streets. Roofs collapsed beneath centuries of exposure. Wind carried sand into homes, courtyards, and temples. The bustling markets disappeared beneath drifting dunes. For hundreds of years, travelers passed nearby without fully understanding the scale of the forgotten city hidden within the ruins. Only archaeological exploration revealed the remarkable civilization that had once flourished there. Today, walking through Gaochang feels like stepping into a chapter of the Silk Road frozen in time. Its towering earthen walls still dominate the oasis landscape. The empty streets still follow the careful plans of ancient builders. Every weathered brick reminds us of a city where countless cultures once met peacefully through trade, learning, and shared curiosity. The caravans have long since vanished. The Great Silk Road no longer carries the world's commerce, but Gaochang remains, standing quietly beneath the desert sun, a lasting reminder that even the greatest capitals can disappear. While the stories preserved beneath their ruins continue to connect civilizations across thousands of years, the chamber built to silence every sound. far from Turkey's crowded cities, on a windswept plateau where the land rolls gently toward the horizon. Ancient stone ruins stand beneath an endless sky. Scattered columns, weathered walls, and mysterious underground chambers hint at a place that once drew pilgrims from across Mesopotamia. Among these ruins, one chamber has inspired generations of curiosity, a room where the thick stone walls seem to swallow every echo, creating an unusual silence unlike anything outside. This is Sogmatar, an ancient sanctuary where archaeology has uncovered one of the most fascinating religious landscapes of the ancient Near East. Located in southeastern Türkiye, not far from the ancient city of Harran, Sogmatar occupies a remote limestone plateau surrounded by low hills. Today, the landscape appears quiet and almost empty, yet nearly 2,000 years ago. This was an important religious center where worshippers gathered beneath the open sky. Its isolation may have been one reason the sanctuary became sacred. Far from busy settlements, the silence itself became part of the experience. Archaeological investigations have shown that Sogmatar flourished during the Roman period, particularly between the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. However, the site's sacred traditions may reach even further into the past. Stone inscriptions, architectural remains, and carved reliefs suggest that this was a place devoted primarily to the worship of celestial deities. Among them was the moon god Sin, whose cult had deep roots throughout ancient Mesopotamia. Pilgrims likely traveled great distances to perform ceremonies beneath the stars. Excavations have uncovered a remarkable collection of religious monuments, rock-cut sanctuaries, stone altars, temple foundations, carved niches, and inscriptions written in ancient Syriac all remain scattered across the site. Unlike many classical temples enclosed by massive walls, much of Sogmatar's sacred landscape blended naturally into the surrounding hills. The landscape itself became part of the sanctuary. Visitors moved between shrines, open courtyards, and carved chambers, each serving a different ceremonial purpose. Perhaps the site's most intriguing feature is its underground chamber, built from thick limestone. The room possesses unusual acoustic qualities. Visitors often notice how outside sounds fade almost completely once inside, rather than producing strong echoes. The chamber seems remarkably quiet. Archaeologists have not concluded that it was intentionally engineered to eliminate sound. The unusual silence is more likely the result of its enclosed design, heavy stone construction, and limited openings. Even so, the effect would have created an atmosphere perfectly suited for private rituals, meditation, or sacred ceremonies. The surrounding hills also preserve dozens of relief carvings, human figures, religious symbols, and inscriptions have been cut directly into the living rock. Several texts mention priests, local rulers, and dedications made to the moon god. Together, these carvings allow archaeologists to reconstruct the spiritual life of the community far more clearly than at many comparable sanctuaries. Rather than relying only on mythology, researchers can connect physical monuments with the written words left by those who worshipped here. Excavations have also recovered everyday artifacts that reveal life beyond religious ceremonies. Fragments of pottery, oil lamps, coins, stone tools, and domestic objects indicate that priests, caretakers, and pilgrims spent extended periods at the sanctuary. This was not simply an isolated temple visited once a year. It functioned as an active religious complex, supporting a community responsible for maintaining its sacred traditions. As political power shifted across the region, ancient religious practices gradually declined. New faiths spread throughout Mesopotamia. Pilgrimages became less frequent. The temples fell into disuse. Without regular maintenance, stone structures slowly collapsed. Wind carried dust across abandoned courtyards. The once sacred sanctuary gradually disappeared into the landscape, its remarkable history forgotten beneath centuries of silence. Modern archaeology has carefully revealed much of what time concealed. Every inscription adds another piece to the story. Every carved relief helps identify forgotten beliefs. Every architectural discovery explains how this extraordinary sanctuary evolved over generations. Although many questions remain unanswered, Sogmatar continues to offer rare insight into the religious world that existed between the great civilizations of Rome and Mesopotamia. Today, the hills of Sogmatar are peaceful once again. The same winds sweep across the plateau. The same stars appear overhead each night. Visitors can still step inside the ancient stone chamber, where the outside world seems to fade into remarkable quiet. Whether that silence was an intentional design or simply a fortunate consequence of ancient architecture remains uncertain, but perhaps that mystery is part of Sogmatar's enduring fascination. In a landscape once filled with prayers, processions, and sacred rituals, the greatest discovery may be the silence that has survived long after every voice has disappeared, the rock that fooled explorers for a century. At first glance, it looks impossible, a massive stone covered with hundreds of perfectly shaped square patterns, as though an ancient civilization had carefully carved every surface by hand. For more than a century, visitors stood before it asking the same question: who built this? Some believed it was the remains of a forgotten temple. Others imagined giant stone cutting machines, or a lost civilization with astonishing engineering skills. But archaeology and geology would eventually reveal a far more remarkable story. This is Waffle Rock, one of North America's most convincing natural illusions. Hidden within the forests of western New York, near the town of North Java, Waffle Rock rests quietly beside a country road. Unlike famous archaeological monuments surrounded by museums and protective walls, this unusual stone sits in an ordinary rural landscape. Its fame comes from a single extraordinary feature. The entire exposed surface is divided into hundreds of raised squares, resembling the pattern of a giant waffle. Each section appears so regular that it is difficult to believe nature alone created it. The rock first attracted widespread attention during the 19th century. As travelers and local historians documented the strange formation, stories quickly began to spread. Some suggested Native American builders had carved the stone. Others believed it marked the foundation of a prehistoric structure long since destroyed. Without scientific investigation, the geometric appearance seemed almost impossible to explain. The mystery endured for decades. Although Waffle Rock is not an archaeological site in the traditional sense, it became an important lesson for archaeology itself. Archaeologists are often confronted with unusual landscapes that appear artificial. Before reaching conclusions, every possibility must be carefully tested. Natural processes can sometimes imitate human craftsmanship with astonishing accuracy. Waffle Rock became one of the clearest examples of why scientific investigation is essential before assigning ancient origins to unusual discoveries. Geological studies eventually solved the mystery. The rock formed millions of years ago as layers of sandstone hardened beneath ancient environments. Over immense spans of time, natural fractures developed in two different directions. These intersecting cracks divided the surface into nearly square blocks. Later, weathering slowly eroded the softer material between them, leaving the harder sections standing slightly higher. The result was a striking grid pattern, entirely produced by natural geological processes. No chisels, no ancient builders, and no forgotten civilization were responsible. Even after the scientific explanation became widely accepted, the rock continued to fascinate researchers. Its nearly perfect geometry demonstrates how natural forces can create patterns that closely resemble human design. Across the world, similar misunderstandings have occasionally led explorers to mistake unusual rock formations for archaeological ruins. Careful excavation, detailed mapping, and laboratory analysis are often required before scientists can distinguish between natural formations and genuine ancient construction. Although no archaeological artifacts have been recovered from Waffle Rock itself, the surrounding region preserves thousands of years of Native American history. Archaeological investigations throughout western New York have uncovered settlements, stone tools, ceramics, and evidence of indigenous communities that lived across the landscape long before European arrival. These authentic discoveries remind researchers that extraordinary archaeology exists nearby, even if the famous rock itself belongs to geology rather than human history. Perhaps the greatest value of Waffle Rock lies in the questions it inspires. Human beings naturally search for patterns. When we encounter remarkable symmetry, our first instinct is often to imagine intelligent builders. This instinct has driven countless archaeological discoveries, but it has also led to mistaken conclusions. Science advances by testing those first impressions, not simply accepting them. Today, visitors still gather around the unusual stone. Many experience the same moment of disbelief that captivated explorers generations ago. Even knowing its natural origin, the rock remains extraordinary. Its perfect geometric appearance continues to challenge our expectations of what nature can create without human hands. Waffle Rock reminds us that archaeology is not only about discovering ancient civilizations. It is also about learning how to recognize the difference between evidence, legend, and appearances. Sometimes, the greatest mystery is not hidden beneath the ground, but within our own assumptions. And in the quiet forests of New York, one remarkable stone continues to teach that lesson, one perfectly shaped square at a time. Bronze giants no one can explain. For thousands of years, they lay hidden beneath the earth, towering bronze faces, masks with eyes that stretched impossibly outward, towering human figures unlike anything ever discovered in ancient China. When archaeologists first uncovered them, many believed they had found evidence of a civilization almost entirely forgotten by history. Even today, the giant bronzes of Sanxingdui remain among the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries ever made, not because archaeologists cannot explain what they are, but because many questions about the people who created them still remain unanswered. Located in China's Sichuan province, near the banks of the Yangtze River, Sanxingdui was once the heart of the ancient Shu kingdom. For centuries, the civilization of Shu was known mainly through scattered historical references. Little physical evidence had survived. Many historians believed it was simply a regional culture overshadowed by the powerful dynasties of northern China. Everything changed in the 20th century. The first clues appeared accidentally in 1929, when a local farmer digging an irrigation ditch uncovered several pieces of beautifully carved jade. The objects were unlike anything previously found in the region. Their craftsmanship suggested an advanced society. Yet no major settlement had been identified nearby. The discovery attracted archaeologists, but the true scale of Sanxingdui remained hidden for decades. Then, in 1986, construction workers uncovered two enormous sacrificial pits. What emerged from the ground astonished the archaeological world. Thousands of carefully buried artifacts, many made from bronze, gold, jade, ivory, and precious stone, unlike ordinary refuse pits. These objects had been deliberately arranged before burial. Many had been intentionally broken, burned, or dismantled as part of what archaeologists believe were elaborate ceremonial rituals. Among the discoveries were the famous bronze masks. Some measured more than a meter across. Their exaggerated eyes projected dramatically forward. Large ears, sharp noses, and solemn expressions gave them an appearance unlike any known ancient Chinese sculpture. No written records explain exactly whom these faces represented. Some researchers believe they portrayed deities. Others suggest they honored kings, priests, or legendary ancestors. Without surviving texts, their true identity remains uncertain. Even more astonishing was the discovery of a towering bronze human figure, standing approximately 2.6 meters tall. It remains one of the largest ancient bronze statues ever found anywhere in the world. The figure appears to stand upright with outstretched hands, perhaps once holding an object made from wood or ivory that has long since disappeared. Its elaborate robes, detailed ornaments, and formal posture suggest an individual of exceptional importance, whether ruler, high priest, or symbolic deity. No consensus has yet been reached. The craftsmanship displayed throughout Sanxingdui is extraordinary. Bronze casting on such a scale required sophisticated furnaces, complex molds, careful temperature control, and highly skilled artisans. These achievements demonstrate that the Shu kingdom possessed advanced metallurgical knowledge comparable to the greatest civilizations of the Bronze Age. Rather than existing on the margins of Chinese history, Sanxingdui revealed a powerful regional culture with its own artistic traditions and technological innovations. Excavations also uncovered magnificent gold masks, jade ceremonial blades, elephant tusks, bronze sacred trees, and delicately carved ornaments. The bronze trees are among the site's most mysterious creations. Their twisting branches support birds, fruit-like decorations, and mythical creatures. Many scholars believe they symbolized sacred cosmological beliefs, possibly representing the connection between heaven, earth, and the spiritual world. Although several interpretations have been proposed, no definitive explanation has been proven. One of archaeology's greatest questions concerns the sudden disappearance of Sanxingdui. The city appears to have been abandoned around 3,000 years ago. For many years, its fate remained a complete mystery. Recent archaeological discoveries at the nearby site of Jinsha suggest that the Shu civilization did not vanish entirely. Instead, its political and religious center may simply have relocated. Some researchers also believe earthquakes, flooding, or changes in the nearby river system could have contributed to the move. Evidence continues to be studied, and no single explanation has been universally accepted. New excavations beginning in 2020 uncovered additional sacrificial pits filled with remarkable artifacts. Using advanced scientific techniques, archaeologists recovered fragile silk fragments, organic remains, painted objects, and previously unknown bronze masterpieces. These discoveries continue to reshape our understanding of ancient China, showing that its earliest civilizations were far more diverse than once believed. Every excavation adds another chapter to a story that is still unfolding. Today, the giant bronze faces of Sanxingdui continue to gaze outward with the same mysterious expressions they carried 3,000 years ago. Their creators left no written explanation. Their ceremonies remain only partly understood. Yet the evidence preserved beneath the earth tells a remarkable story, not of aliens or forgotten superhuman builders, but of an extraordinary civilization whose artistic imagination rivaled any in the ancient world. The greatest mystery of Sanxingdui is not that its bronzes cannot be explained. It is that an entire kingdom capable of creating such masterpieces remained hidden from history for so very long.